Where did the beautiful flowers come from today? Does anybody know? The renters. Thank goodness for renters. They're really making this place look good, aren't they? Yeah, thank you, Crystal. We appreciate that. We're going to rent more often, particularly when we get the social hall ready. We had some people looking for a wedding venue this December, and we're not. Oh, well, we're not sure we could guarantee the social hall by then. We're working on it, though. It's a work in progress. When we opened our summer series with Jeff Underberg opening the series on amplifying the voices of justice in your community, what is your call to action? We've heard some amazing people this summer. Today, as we conclude the series, we reflect on what we learned from our speakers as they spoke about their particular call to action. And we can think about how we can amplify our voice for justice. I want to give a special thanks to Jeff Underberg, to Penny Reed, Bob Harmon, Sharon Scholl, Hope Clayton, Jean Hebner, Crystal, and all of our worship associates, staff, greeters, and volunteers who worked hard to make the summer series so impactful. This morning, Jeff and Penny will join me and provide their reflections on the series. We're going to begin with Penny in Fernandina Beach.
Good morning. As Peter said, we're reviewing our summer series and the messages brought to us by our speakers, providing each of us food for thought about how we too can amplify our voice for justice. As a reminder, here are the speakers we had over the summer. Irvin Pedro Cohen, CEO of the Local Initiatives Support Program, which is part of a nationwide organization that is dedicated to transforming local neighborhoods and into healthy and sustainable communities of choice and opportunities. LISC is the largest community development organization in the United States, and I had never even heard of them until Pedro came and spoke to us. Next, we had Reggie Fullwood, founder of Operation New Hope, which provides life-changing support and training to people who are impacted by the justice system to reconnect them to the workforce, their families, and their communities. Faye Johnson, CEO of the Northeast Florida Healthy Start Coalition, dedicated to reducing infant mortality and improving the health of children, childbearing women, and their families in Northeast Florida. Richard Baylard, president of the Nassau County Coalition for the Homeless, which is committed to ending homelessness in Nassau County and provides emergency shelter, housing assistance, and case management services to the unhoused population in the county. Charles Griggs, speaking about the City of Jacksonville Community Initiatives Program, focused on providing a supportive network of community goals focused on quality of life, including safety, housing, and economic development. Hayden Beyer, Director of Mental Health Services and Programs for Jasmine, a robust nonprofit supporting LGBTQIA+ teens and young adults in Jacksonville. Jasmine provides essential services and fosters a supportive community for this often marginalized group. And we have 4 congregation members speak about their own journeys, amplifying their voices about causes important to them. David Keel, Vince Ober, Tessie Bond, and Todd Bettis. Each of these individuals discovered a calling that resonated with them both personally and professionally. This calling provided them with an opportunity to support and enhance the lives of countless people in various ways. They used their time, talent, and personal resources, or treasure, often bypassing more lucrative careers to be of service. They were all, in a way, in the right place at the right time to fulfill their own personal missions, or, in a couple of cases, they created the opportunities to serve those in need. I am in awe of each and every one of them and often feel inadequate and overwhelmed about how I can possibly have any meaningful impact on the larger world around me. However, as I reflected on what I would say today, I realized that I spent over 40 years of my life as a physical therapist working with people whose lives have been completely disrupted by illness or accident. 20 of those years were at a rehabilitation hospital working with people with spinal cord injuries. I guess that counts. I wish I were more eloquent expressing this, but I believe we all have something to give, whether it's our time reaching out to legislators, serving in various volunteer capacities, serving on boards, bringing food for the Arlington Community Services, making lunch bags for the homeless in Nassau County, and donating what we can to support organizations such as these: time, talent, and treasure. And I was particularly impressed by the mission of the Northeast Florida Healthy Start Coalition, and apparently so were a lot of you. You may recall this was a special collection Sunday. Collectively, this is amazing, we donated $2,357 to this worthy and effective organization. I think this may be a special collection record for UUCJ. Social activism and meaningful amplifying our voice for justice is a tenet of the UU faith and of UUCJ, and we can all contribute in ways large and small, and all of it counts.
Thank you, Penny. Jeff?
That's a tough act to follow, don't you think? I'll do my best. Excuse me. When I look back on what led us to this pass in choosing amplifying the voice of justice in our community, I look back at what's happening in our country in many ways, where as an acquaintance who is a judge laments the fact that in a lot of places due process is disappearing. And that's an enormous question of justice in this country. And whether we want to try to stand up against people who are depriving others of due process, as well as other parts of the judicial system. It's tough to do, and as Penny said, probably the best thing to do is write or call our representatives. I don't know if I want to stand up linked arms against people with guns and masks, but there is an injustice out there that's happening. Sorry, that was my soapbox. I hope you enjoyed the summer series. We got some people who really care about what they do. And one thing, or two things, one thing particularly stood out is that many of the speakers expressed the fact that their faith, their Christian faith, inspired them and motivated them and informed them in what they were doing. Now, not all of us are Christians. This is a church that welcomes anyone. We also have an open pulpit. We invite someone to talk, come on down. But it was very pleasing to hear people talk about how their faith encouraged them to do something for other people, as opposed to some people who think that their faith tells you you should do something against other people. So I'm happy about that, and it was really reassuring and pleasant to see that. Forgive me while I put my glasses on. As Penny said, what is our way forward? Did we provide enough opportunities for our congregants to do something about justice in our country? I think we did, at least in our community. I think we did. Every year we try to find good speakers, and with the fortunate addition of Peter as our lay minister, his resources and connections have helped broaden our opportunities to get good speakers in here. And thank you, Peter, for that, bringing that to the table with us. I listened to Bridget talk about courage. And I just reread the very, very short story by William Faulkner. He didn't write anything short, called The Bear. And in The Bear, they talk about courage and being afraid. And he said, you can't be afraid. That's what's important. Don't be afraid of something. Bridget talked about having the courage to do something. So what we have to do is not be afraid going forward. Not be afraid to make our voices heard in any way possible. This is a great place. Our reputation as a place for change, for social action, is probably unparalleled around here, except in other non-religious groups. So let's make sure our voice is heard. Next summer, we'll have another summer series. We don't know what it is yet, but I guarantee you, you'll enjoy it. Thank you so much. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Jeff and Penny, and all the work that we did in coordinating it. And not everybody made every Sunday, but just to let you know, all the sermons are online. So you can go back if you miss one and say, oh, I would like to, catch up on what's going on in Nassau County with the homeless situation, or what's going on with our transgender community. When I reflected on this summer series, 2 words struck out to me. The first word was the word call to action. And, what sets us apart from a political party or a civic organization is that we look at what is the spiritual underpinning of our calling. What does that mean? It's what is the internal voice that leads us to action, or an external concern that can call us to action. They're often very connected. And, as Penny brought out, we don't always value who we are and what we're actually doing on a daily basis. 40 years in physical therapy, in nursing, working with your colleagues, wherever that is, being that inspiration example on a daily basis. In retirement, looking at how you can serve others and take care of yourself. All of those are part of what we do in our own call to action. So something happens and it causes empathy, compassion, and a sense of justice in our core being. And we also feel angry and frustrated because we kind of feel helpless in some ways to do anything about what's going on. These are our core values as Unitarian Universalists, but they're not exclusively ours. However, the values are being turned upside down by some in our society. Some are saying that compassion and empathy lead to laws that are counter to God's word, so to speak, in the Christian Bible, the Jewish scriptures, or the Quran. For example, they say that compassion led to the legalization of rights in marriage for the LGBTQ plus community, but that's morally wrong. So having empathy and compassion is leading you to make a wrong decision. At the same time, and on the flip side perhaps, they then become very legalistic about things, saying that immigrant rights is a legal issue, not a moral or a compassionate issue. They refuse to consider the scriptures in all of those 3 religions that tell us to welcome the immigrant and have compassion. Those are ignored. Our concept of social justice, which includes the protection of the vulnerable, inclusion of minorities, equity of women and men, has been taken over by those who see justice as a legalistic way to promote homophobic and white supremacy. Some politicians argue that illegal aliens and refugees have broken the law and have caused lawlessness in our country. These are lies. Our government is arbitrarily making people who are completely legal one week to be illegal the next, through no fault of their own. And only 6% of those deported had serious criminal records. 94% did not. Now, some were apprehended, had no criminal record. The majority had no criminal record. Some had a common offense, like a driving infraction, that I would guess every one of us have had in our life. The reality is the only reason why they're illegal is that our government and we as a nation are denying this generation of immigrants and refugees, which we have provided to every generation before, whether they were Irish Americans, Italian Americans, German Americans, etc. They were offered a real and forthright pathway to asylum, residency, and citizenship. The pathway that they were offered, and the reason why most of us in this room are in this room today, here in Jacksonville, Florida, in the United States, is being denied to this generation. The first steps of totalitarianism, fascism, and nationalism is to dehumanize others that you don't agree with, especially minorities, vulnerable populations, independent media, and opposition leaders. This is being done now. Defense Secretary Peter Hegseth said, the Pentagon is, quote, leaving wokeness and weakness behind. And that includes, quote, no more dudes in dresses in the military. So how do you dehumanize those who are faithfully and honorably serving their country? By making them less than human, describing them as dudes in dresses. Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security, regularly makes disparaging remarks about immigrants, refugees, and their allies, most recently calling the entire city of Los Angeles a city of criminals. How do you dehumanize, or how do you get what your point across is by dehumanizing others? Our speaker showed over and over again over this summer how our values are being reshaped by others to be used against us. The rights of women to make their own decisions about their bodies, saying that state politicians know more than the women and their doctors about their own health care. The rights of formerly incarcerated to become fully reintegrated into community, including the right to vote, by a society that continues to punish them by placing untenable financial burdens on them with court costs and other fines that interest accrues while they're in jail. The rights of our LGBTQ plus community, especially our trans community, to lead the life they use, have their rights protected, serve in our military with pride, marry and love who they would want. This right, particularly of marriage, is very much at risk of being lost nationally with the makeup of our Supreme Court. So our call to action is first and foremost to claim and reclaim our values, to know that empathy and compassion actually lead to right action, that injustice to the vulnerable and the oppressed lead us to respond with compassion and justice. The other side of the theme, the other word, was amplify that struck me. Amplify our voice for justice. We had our leadership development group yesterday, and I used as our reading, and I'll use it again. Margaret Mead noted, quote, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, that's the only thing that ever has. So, I would say that at UUCJ, we're a small group. Agreed? We're thoughtful. And we're committed. So I don't know why the world hasn't changed yet. Well, it's not all at once, one step at a time, and sometimes they're going to go backwards before we go frontwards. And again, this is not a social issue. It's not a political issue. It goes to the core of who we are as a spiritual community. That's why we gather today. From theists to atheists and everyone in between, we promote our principles, the dignity and worth of every human being. Not everybody's doing that, right? A free and democratic society, certainly at risk. The interconnectedness of life, very much at risk. So whether we're theists or atheists and everybody in between, our calling comes from our spiritual core. Service is our prayer, as our covenant affirmation says, and we engage in service to care for others and oppose injustice. So we face difficult challenges, We have ideological majorities in Congress, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court, and here in Florida, that allow politicians to largely ignore our voice. They have the majority, and in our society, that's what matters. And that's true. We can protest all we want, but if the vote goes a certain way, things will continue to stay the way they are. So, what we also know is politicians, corporate leaders, and religious leaders actually do listen to voices of dissent, even if it appears they don't do anything about it. Our own sheriff refused to meet with ICARE, the association we belong to, with faith groups working together for social justice. But he finally came around to meeting. And even if he doesn't do everything ICARE wants him to do, engaging in dialogue is the first step in the right direction of building relationships. We are a small group of people, so it's important we seek out and work together with allies to amplify our voices for justice. The vast majority of speakers this summer had never been to our church. One lives in Arlington, drives by, said, "You know what, that sign is very small." We're going to change that later this year. She goes, "I didn't even know you were here." I knew the apartment complex. They need to know we're here. And I urge you to invite others to come. Not necessarily to become members, but to know that we are allies, that we exist, that we support them. So for them to come to this church, not even to speak or just as a visitor, please do that. I want us to be concrete in our actions and focused. It's impossible to take on every issue unless you're Tessie Bond. Is Tessie here? Tessie, raise your hand in the back. So if you're Tessie Bond, you can take on every issue. It's okay. But the rest of us, I think we're more like Penny Reed. We got to pick and choose. All right, but I want to thank Tessie specifically. She's put together a list of elected officials and government representatives here in Jacksonville and Nassau County, as well as in the state of Florida, and our national representatives and government officials. I have hard copies of that list in the back, and we'll also post this information on our website. I would like us to do something. I have a homework assignment. It might get some people out of your comfort zone a little bit, but I would like us to communicate with at least one official or representative this week through email, mail, or telephone to express your opinion about an issue. Getting out of our comfort zone is okay. You might say it won't make a difference, but it will be listed. And when 100 people say they don't like what somebody's doing, when 1,000 people say they don't like what they're doing, well, okay, maybe there's a point to it. Speak to a value that's important to you, whether it be the right to due process for our immigrants, the problem of the financial burden of fees and court costs for the formerly incarcerated, the needs of adults on Medicaid, the rights of our LGBTQ community, our environment, particularly the refugee resettlement, encampment, and jail that's in the Everglades, or public education. And even if you think you're getting a deaf ear and there's no way your view will succeed, you are invoking our principle of the democratic process. We're going to do our part, and it's good practice. And let me know how it goes, because imagine if each one of us does this once a week for the next 52 weeks, our individual voice will be amplified thousands of times just by our own members. Now, along this theme, I want to take a moment. I also wanted to say, Tessie also has a copy of the Constitution. While we still have one, you should read it. Okay? Tessie's from Cuba originally, and the original Cuban Constitution was actually based on the United States Constitution. The new United States Constitution will probably be based on the new Cuban Constitution if we're not careful. Let me read this statement as your minister, which will be posted on our website. on the issue of refugees and immigrants. They are our neighbors, mothers, fathers, children, grandparents, young adults, many of whom have lived here since childhood. Hardworking, contributing, tax-paying. They are not criminals. Even though it was said that the target of our government was to deport violent criminals, that group makes only 6% of those who have been deported. Millions of our neighbors were and are here legally until arbitrary administrative acts of our government made them suddenly illegal. They're now being denied their constitutional due process, tricked by departmental judges who close their cases only so they can be trapped in the hallway and whisked away to unknown parts. Their family, friends, and attorneys have no idea where they are. These are Gestapo-type tactics. The only reason why they are illegal is because our government has refused to offer what every other generation of immigrants has received, a real and forthright way to asylum, residency, and citizenship. Our own state of Florida opened a complex in the middle of the environmentally sensitive area, which was abandoned decades ago for that very reason, and soon-to-be facilities right here in Northeast Florida at Camp Blanding and in Baker County. The issue of immigration and refugees is complex. States like Florida and Texas have suffered greatly under the economic and social weight of thousands of families who came without adequate federal policies or support. We recognize that and the burden that has placed on us as we live in one of those states. But that does not give us the right to dehumanize them, to arbitrarily change their legal status overnight, and to make them criminals when they are not. So, what is my call to action and ours as Unitarian Universalists? First, to speak out on behalf of the oppressed. Second, to support the refugees and others close to us who need our support. And third, to align with others like iCare and other groups in the fight for freedom and justice. There is power in numbers. Although we conclude the summer series, we'll continue to discern our call to action and always advocate for justice in our words and our deeds. And we do not need to think that someone else is doing better and greater things. We just need to do what we can do. To close this sermon, I'd like to ask you to join me in reciting a responsive reading. I wrote this for an earlier sermon and revised it based on our summer series. It's inspired by the World War II words of German pastor Martin Niemöller regarding the Nazis. I'll read the first part in italics, and you will respond in bold, and we'll read the last line together. First, they came for the transgender community. It did not speak out because I was not transgender. Then they came for the homeless, and I did not speak out because I was not homeless. Then they came for medical abortion providers and women who wanted an abortion. And I did not speak out because I was not getting an abortion. Then they came for the media, universities, environmentalists, prosecutors, and government employees. And I did not speak out because I was not one of these. Then they came for me, and there was no Let us not be silent. Let us amplify our voice of justice on behalf of others, not just through our words, but in our actions. Thank you.